Right, Ryan at nzherald.co.nz is our email address. Let's check in with markets now. Investment strategist Forsyth, Barr, Zoe Wallis. Zoe, good morning.
Good morning, Ryan.
How are we looking this morning?
Oh, pretty good, I think. Yep. We've got earnings coming up this week and we've got CPI data out yesterday.
Yes, so let's talk about the CPI data. How are markets reacting?
Yeah, look, I think the CPI was a little bit weaker than perhaps the consensus expectation was, coming in at 2.7% year on year. I don't think that means we're looking at, deflationary pressure in the near term. So inflation has actually stepped up from 2.5 to 2.7 and is looking at creeping higher again in the current quarter as well. But what it does mean is that it was, relatively in line with what the Reserve Bank had been expecting. They had a 2.6% forecast in there. And what we're seeing is that core measures of inflation and underlying domestic inflation pressure are still continuing to ease, which is good news for the Reserve Bank, and that it should keep the door open for an August rate cut. Unfortunately, there were some pockets of inflation that won't be welcome for the average consumer, though. Things like food prices, as you mentioned, still going up.
Yeah, tell us about the markets. Let's talk about offshore for a second. Over in the US, reporting season happening there. I saw a stat this morning that an above average 84% of firms that have reported so far are actually beating the predictions, beating forecasts.
That's correct, and it sounds like a big number. Often we see earnings actuals beat estimates, but that is what we have seen this season to date is that it's looking pretty solid so far. So we had really good news out of financial stocks that were reporting last week, and so far we've seen things like Netflix deliver better than expected results. We had Levi out the other day, Levi Jeans, obviously, saying that we're still looking at a pretty strong pipeline for consumer sales. So there's signs that, the US consumer is actually holding up quite well. And that's flowing through to what we're seeing from reporting season so far. This week, the big focus is on a couple of big tech names, including Tesla and Alphabet or Google. So obviously quite a lot of attention being paid on those two stocks. Be quite interesting to see how much AI is cutting into Google search. So markets will be watching for that, as well as forward guidance just around how things are faring under a new tariff regime. Obviously, we haven't really seen the tariff impact feed through to numbers as yet, but we're watching for firms and what they're saying about how they're going to manage that going forward.
Zoe, appreciate your time this morning. Zoe Wallis, investment strategist at Forsyth Barr, and we look at the markets every week thanks to our partners, Forsyth Barr.